for everybody. Fresh, pure, holy peace. Oh, peace in you, peace in me, peace for everybody. Fresh, pure, holy peace.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace, blessing, and mercy of Allah be with you. Now we start the 11th segment of that series, Islam, or Peace and Justice for All. Today we continue with some of the verses in the Quran that has been broadly misunderstood, misquoted, sometimes mistranslated, and sometimes utterly abused, to try and trace the violence that some Muslims commit contrary to the teaching of Islam, to the Quran itself, so that the blame will not be on those who violate the teaching of Islam, the blame would be on Islam itself. One of those verses appears in chapter 9, specifically verse 29. It reads like this in the original Arabic text of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قاتلوا الذين لا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر ولا يحرمون ما حرم الله ورسوله ولا يدينون دين الحق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب حتى يعطوا الجزية عن يد وهم صاغرون. Basic meaning, sort of simple translation: fight those who do not believe in Allah, meaning God, capital G, nor in the hereafter, those who do not consider as unlawful what God and His messengers consider unlawful, and do not follow the religion of truth of the people of the book. Notice here specifying of the people of the book, until they pay jizya. Jizya requires some explanation, but at this point let's translate it as poll tax, when they are able to, and as a token of their submission or acceptance of the authority, meaning of the government. Now, on the face of it, it sounds categorical, doesn't it? It sounds categorical in a sense that there is no specification, there is no limitation, and Muslims are supposed to keep fighting Jews and Christians in all places at all times. That doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever in view of the overwhelming evidence that was presented in so many segments before, right from the Quran, from logic, from history, that the basic peace, the basic message of Islam is that of peace, not conflict. So how do we discern what is mentioned here in this verse? We go back to some of the rules of interpretations that were mentioned early, especially in the 7th segment. It's known in the Arabic term, in the books dealing with Islamic legal theory, as al-am alladhi yuradu bihi al-khas, which means sometimes you find a statement in the Quran or a term that seems to be inclusive and general, yet there is more than one evidence that in fact it does not apply to all the universe that you're talking about, but only to a small subset of it. Just by way of reminder, because it pertains to this discussion. The term an-nas in Arabic, as used in the Quran, actually literally means humankind. There are cases where the general is meant to be general, for sure. An example, that term an-nas is used in the last chapter of the Quran, 114, in a context that shows that it includes every human being from Adam until the Day of Judgment, all times, all places. Because it says, Rabbin Nas, it says Allah is the Lord of An-Nas, means of humankind. There is no other Rabb or Lord or Creator except the one true God, Allah. Which means then that this term is general and meant to be general, inclusive of each and every human being, for there is no other creator or Lord of any subset of An-Nas or humankind except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it must be inclusive. But the identical term has been used in chapter 3 in the Quran, for example, to tell a story that happened at the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when Muslims, even after their migration to Medina, were not totally secure because the Meccans and their allies were constantly trying to raise armies to come and attack them and suppress their faith. And actually, it's said even that one person came to warn Muslims, to tell them that the Meccans are preparing an army to invade you or attack you. And the verse says, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ. الناس, notice here, إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُم. Those who were told, or who were told by الناس. الناس here was one person. It doesn't mean human beings, obviously. It's an incident that happened at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It could not be الناس in the general sense, as the other verse in chapter 114, from Adam. People who died already came to the Prophet and told him. And people who are yet to be born centuries later came to tell the Prophet, obviously. And nas here is a general term, but there is evidence here that it applies only to a subset. And even if you continue for the second time, it says people, or humankind, if you were to translate it generally, people have been preparing an army to invade you. Obviously, those annas, or people who were planning to invade Medina and suppress Muslims, are not people from Adam until the day of judgment. So I hope that this is a clear example that some people say, no, but it's general, it says right there. No, you have to look rationally also into the context. And now we have also the historical context. This verse appears in chapter 9. In a previous segment, we indicated that most of the verses that deal with Muslims being forced to use force for self-defense or to resist oppression, that those chapters, or there are 3 chapters in fact, which mention most of those verses, chapter 8, 9, and 47. So this is one of those chapters that deal with the situation of warfare and self-defense. That's the context of it. It has nothing to do with the fact that the other people are people of the book, whether Jews or Christians for that matter. Now, what was the exact historical context of this? Let's talk about people of the book, because they are mentioned specifically in that verse. Is it because they were people of the book? I think we'd be grossly mistaken if we don't go back to history and realize that when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was in Medina, he sent letters of invitation to Islam to the various rulers of the world. Some of them were kind and gentle, even though they did not accept Islam, like, for example, in Egypt, Archbishop in Egypt. He sent him a nice letter, gifts, but he did not accept Islam. But then there were other rulers, like, for example, the Persian emperor. And when he received the letter of the Prophet, which was a peaceful letter, invitation to Islam, he actually said, does he write that to me, referring to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? Does he dare write that to me, and he's my slave servant? He wrote or sent a message to his local governor in Yemen by the name of Bazan. And he told him, I heard that there is a man who just emerged in Arabia, claimed to be a prophet, meaning the one who wrote me that letter. Go and ask him to recant, and if he doesn't, bring me his head. In other words, kill him and send his head. I think Bazan was a wiser person that he did not implement that. But in any case, that showed the attitude, aggression, and arrogance of one of the 2 most arrogant and tyrannical empires in history at the time of the Prophet, especially this is the Sassanid or Persian empires. But you might say, all right, but these were Persian, they were not Christians. Why does the verse also mention people of the book? The danger Muslims and the ganging up against them was not limited to the Meccans, who were neither Christians nor Magians like the Persians. It was not only limited to the Persians, and they have their own religion. But we have to be honest also in saying that some people of the book, some of the people of the book, at least those in power, also were ganging up against Muslims. I'm not dealing even with the internal danger in terms of some of the people of the book in Medina who kept undermining the message of Islam and spreading all kind of rumors and false information. This is a different topic. But the most clear and imminent danger also from outside included the Byzantine Empire, the other arrogant, powerful, tyrannical empire at the time, just like two superpowers, East and West, competing for power among themselves, but both of them are suppressing their subjects as well as the people also who came under their rule or occupation. There have been instances where, for example, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sent memorizers of the Quran to teach people about the Quran, the word of Allah, and the message of Islam. And in some cases, they were tricked, they were treacherously killed, cold-bloodedly. And of course, they were going as teachers, not as fighters. And they were all killed. There have been also a clear incident, which is not a small by any means. It's not the only one, but perhaps the major one that threatened the very existence of the early Muslim community. This is known as the campaign of Tabuk. When we get a large army, a very large army of the Byzantine soldiers gathering in Tabuk. Tabuk is now in the northern or northwest part of what is now Saudi Arabia. What was that army doing? Obviously, the attitude were hostile, and in fact there have been cases that some of the Christian, but not because of their Christianity, contrary to their Christianity, killed the messenger who came to them with the letter of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And even among the Arabs at that time, it was known that it is a norm not to kill a messenger from another state. It's also like killing an ambassador of a country, which many would consider today an act of war. We'll take a break and come back, inshallah, and continue.
I feel the peace, inside of me.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue, inshallah, with what we were discussing before the break, the ganging up against Muslims by various groups of people from various religious backgrounds, and that included, of course, some of the people of the book, people from the Roman Empire at the time, or Byzantine Empire, as it should be called. But we indicated as well that some of the important rules of interpretations of the Quran is to examine the textual context, not to pick one verse and misinterpret it without bringing all the other texts in the same subject together. And here again, we need to remind ourselves with the verse that I emphasized more than one time, and will continue to do that because it is a very crucial verse in the Quran, even though it's not the only one, but this one is very straightforward and very clear in its meaning. That is verse 8 in chapter 60, which I called it the verse of peaceful coexistence, which prohibit Muslims from doing any harm to any person from any religious background, so long as they are not fighting Muslims to suppress their faith or oppressing them and taking away their rights. And we indicated that there is no doubt that this is the basic foundation. It's not only one verse, but the clearest one, but there are many other verses that support the notion that the message of Islam actually is a message of peace, peaceful coexistence, but at the same time, just peaceful coexistence, which means it does allow for self-defense, it does allow for resistance of tyranny and oppression, which is nothing to apologize for. It's accepted by human nature, international laws, UN Charter, you name it. There's no shame. In fact, it's a matter of pride, not shame, that the guidance of Islam is so comprehensive that it helps manage the periods of peace and help manage also the periods of conflict with the least possible losses if peaceful means fail to achieve justice and stop aggression and oppression. So with these verses, I don't need to repeat them again. It is obvious then that there is no justification to fight them simply because they are people of the book. Furthermore, if you look at the wording of the verse, some people say, but look, it says fight them, the people of the book, who do not believe in Allah and the hereafter. And doesn't that mean that you're fighting them because of their religion? The answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, the Quran itself, in chapter 29, verse 46, indicates, and we'll come back to that verse later, inshallah, that Jews and Christians believe in the same God that Muslims believe in. So when it says people who do not believe in Allah or the hereafter of the people of the book, does it apply to all of them? Is it not true that a lot of people today who call themselves Jews, Christians, or Muslims might be in fact just by name an atheists, which is totally the antithesis of the belief in the one God? So even among what you might call people of the book or Muslims, there are people even who do not believe in Allah or in the life hereafter. Even a minority, even if you get a community that's so much united about believing God, there will be always a small minority that does not. So that's not the cause of their religion. The cause is not because they are Jews or Christian. And then the verse says, do not consider unlawful what God and His Messenger taught us to be unlawful. Is that the reason for fighting them in itself? The answer is no. Definitely no. Because it's well known in Islamic jurisprudence that, for example, a Muslim considered drinking alcohol as forbidden. Yet the right of non-Muslims who believe that it's permissible to them cannot be harassed or prevented. And Islam went into justice to the extent of having a rule that's well known that, for example, if a Muslim breaks a jar of wine of another Muslim, that other Muslim has no right to ask for compensation because both are Muslims, and in Islam, wine is not a good in the economic sense. It's not good, that is opposite of bad. It's not a good, a valuable good that has a value. So there is no compensation for a Muslim. But notice this. If a Muslim breaks a jar of wine or kill a pig, for example, that belongs to a Jew or Christian, of course Jews don't eat pork, so wine, let's say, that belong to a Jewish or Christian citizen, he would be obliged to compensate him, no matter what he believes about drinking, no matter how much he believes that this is not a valuable asset or item, still he has to compensate the Jew or Christian. Look at this more than tolerance, the justice, you had to compensate him for that. So we cannot take it as it appears that, oh yeah, because they don't consider what Islam consider haram, they should know, because they have every right to follow their own religion. The other part of the verse, وَلَا يَدِينُونَ دِينَ الْحَقِّ, they don't follow the religion of truth. Does that mean that they are fought because of their religions? Absolutely not. Yes, for the Muslim, theologically, he says, okay, Islam is the ultimate and final truth. Like anybody else, believe in their religion, theologically. But the Quran has guaranteed people not to be Muslims. Guaranteed that right. In chapter 2, verse 256, for example, لا إكراه في الدين, let there be no coercion in faith. That was quoted earlier. In chapter 18, Al-Kahf or Cave, it gives the choice for disbelief in as much as it gives the choice of believing. وَقُلِ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Say, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, this is the truth from your Lord. Whoever wills to believe, let him or her believe. Notice the exact parallel. And whoever wishes not to believe or to reject faith, let them reject faith. Equal right to believe and equal right parallel to disbelief. How do we explain them that the verse mentioned all of these things? Remember in a previous segment, we said when the Quran, for example, says, fight the non-believers, whatever the term is used for kuffar, non-believers, unbelievers, disbelievers, whatever. We'll come back to those terms and analyze more carefully. Is it because they are rejectors of the faith of Islam? The answer is no, and we have shown in previous quotations that the description of being rejectors of Islam is incidental, and the fight is not because of their religion, it is because of their aggression. Just like when you get some person who's shooting at people, okay? Somebody in the street carrying a machine gun and shooting at people. And the police come, or the security forces, and say, shoot this man with the jeans, he's wearing jeans, for example. Shoot that man with the blue jeans. Does that mean that they should go around and find every person who's wearing jeans or blue jeans and shoot him to death? It sounds general, doesn't apply to all of them. The description of the person wearing blue jeans is incidental. They're not shooting him because he's wearing blue jeans. They're shooting him because he's killing other people. Exactly the same thing applies here. It is not because of religion. It is an incidental description that those who committed that aggression or crime happen to be people of the book, not because of their particular faith. This is guaranteed. There's no question about the freedom of faith and freedom. So here again, since this verse is talking about the specific subset of people of the book who showed enmity and gathered armies to destroy Muslims, and these were very powerful empires when Muslims were still a budding and weak community. When they are described as people of the book or don't believe in Allah and the hereafter and all of these are incidental, and it is not the cause of fighting against them because of their arrogance, the use of their power, the gathering of army to destroy Muslims. Now, another question perhaps could be raised from the same chapter as well, chapter 9. Very similar, and perhaps we can discuss it here because it's very much connected, so I don't have to repeat some of these things that have been explained in detail about verse 29. That refers to verse 123 in the same chapter, 9. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قاتلوا الذين يلونكم من الكفار وليجدوا فيكم غلظة. O believers, so that's addressed to Muslims, fight those who grid you about. Those who grid you about, surrounding at your borders, of the non-believers. Notice here it doesn't say, for example, the people of the book. That's more general even, of your neighbor. وَلْيَجِدُوا فِيكُمْ غَلْظَةً. A better translation, let them see firmness and strength in you. Not harsh. The word harsh sometimes is negative, as some people translate it. غِلْظَة, that defends you, that you're not soft, you're not compromising on your national security, that you're firm and strong, stern with those who are trying to destroy you. And they say here, look, again, on the face of it, it means that Muslims should be constantly fighting their neighbors, nations or peoples or tribes that are gridding them about, because Muslims are not living in isolation. Now, is it really that general? Everything that was said about verse 29 applies here. Number one, like many verses in chapter 8, 9, and 47, we find that is mentioned there the survival, the attempts of Muslims to survive the ganging up of forces on them. Why does it say is non-believers rather than people of the book? Because like we said earlier, it was not only Jews and Christians or Arabs who were trying to destroy Islam, or at least some of them. It was also the Persians, who were neither people of the book nor idolatrous people like the people in Mecca. So the reason then is the danger, as described earlier. They threatened Muslims and threatened their very existence, whether they were Persian rulers or Roman rulers for that matter. We'll stop at this point and come back with the next segment. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace in you, peace in me, peace for everybody. Fresh, pure, holy peace. Oh, peace in you, peace in me, peace for everybody. Fresh, pure, holy peace. I feel the peace inside of me. A complete tranquility. I remember Allah, He remembers me. Feel the peace.